The 1980s in America were a unique period defined by rapid cultural shifts, economic transformations, and a distinctive urban landscape that has become iconic in memory and media. Walking through any American city during this decade would reveal a fascinating blend of modernity, neon lights, and the enduring traces of the post-war era. Streets were alive with activity, cars dominated the roads, and urban and suburban architecture reflected both ambition and practicality. One of the most immediately noticeable aspects of 1980s American life was the presence of cars. The streets were filled with boxy sedans, muscle cars, station wagons, and the emerging minivans, reflecting both the diversity and prosperity of the era. The Chevrolet Camaro, Ford Mustang, and Pontiac Firebird were popular among young drivers who sought speed, style, and individuality. Families often drove station wagons or full-size sedans like the Chevrolet Caprice or Ford Limited, which prioritized space and comfort for weekend trips and grocery runs. The car culture defined social life as much as transportation. Cruising down the main street or hanging out at local diners was a quintessential part of teenage and young adult life. Urban streets in the 1980s were characterized by a mixture of old and new. Many downtown areas retained older brick buildings and brownstones, while newer constructions included glass front office buildings and early skyscrapers, reflecting the economic optimism of the Reagan era. Neon signs and brightly lit storefronts made the streets vibrant at night. Small local businesses thrived alongside the growing number of chain stores, creating a dynamic, sometimes chaotic, urban energy. People walked on crowded sidewalks, often carrying shopping bags, while buses and taxis shared the roads with private vehicles. In cities like New York, Los Angeles, and Chicago, the streets were a mosaic of cultures, reflecting the growing diversity brought by domestic migration and immigration. Public spaces like parks, plazas, and squares offered glimpses of daily life. Children played in playgrounds surrounded by apartment complexes. Teenagers congregated at basketball courts, and adults often socialized in small cafes or local diners. The music of the era, from the beats of Michael Jackson and Prince to the rock riffs of Bruce Springsteen, could be heard pouring out of car radios, storefronts, and street performances, creating a soundtrack that defined the decade. Fashion and personal style were just as visually striking, with neon colors, leg warmers, denim jackets, and shoulder pads making the streets an open display of cultural trends. In suburban areas, life moved at a slightly slower pace, but was no less emblematic of the decade. Wide streets lined with single-family homes, manicured lawns, and mailboxes became the standard image of the American dream. The growth of suburbs was fueled by affordable housing and the expansion of highways, which made commuting to cities feasible. Shopping malls became central hubs of social life, offering teenagers and families alike a place to gather, shop, and experience the growing consumer culture. Inside these malls, you would find everything from department stores like Macy's and Sears to arcade centers, small food courts, and music shops, all reflecting the economic prosperity and leisure-oriented lifestyle of the time. Technology began making a significant impact in daily life. Personal computers were rare, but slowly appearing in homes and schools, while video games and arcades were a major attraction for children and teenagers. Televisions broadcasted 24-hour news channels, sitcoms, and music videos on MTV, which had launched in 1981 and quickly influenced fashion, music, and attitudes. The combination of traditional leisure and emerging technology created a cultural landscape where youth were increasingly exposed to global trends while still rooted in local communities. The 1980s were also marked by socio-economic contrasts. While many enjoyed prosperity, urban centers faced challenges such as rising crime rates and economic inequality. Cities like New York and Detroit were coping with industrial decline and increased poverty in certain neighborhoods, while suburbs and Sunbelt cities like Phoenix, Houston, and Los Angeles experienced rapid growth and investment. This contrast was visible in the urban environment. Shiny, well-kept business districts stood in stark contrast to older, neglected residential areas. Nightlife and entertainment played a central role in shaping the city's vibe. Bars, clubs, and live music venues thrived, especially in larger metropolitan areas. Neon signs advertised nightclubs and theaters, while streets bustled with taxicabs, late-night diners, and people enjoying an active social life. Drive-in movie theaters, though declining from their mid-century peak, still provided a nostalgic weekend experience, often serving as a setting for teenage dating culture and family outings. Food culture also reflected the diversity of American life in the 1980s. Fast food chains like McDonald's, Burger King, and Wendy's became cultural staples, offering convenience and consistency. At the same time, ethnic restaurants began to gain wider recognition, with Chinese, Italian, and Mexican cuisine becoming more accessible and popular. Grocery stores were transitioning to larger formats, with self-checkout not yet a reality, so shopping remained a hands-on communal activity. Education and work life were deeply intertwined with the physical environment. Schools were a central part of neighborhoods, often surrounded by playgrounds and sports fields. Office jobs increasingly populated downtowns, with employees commuting from suburban homes. The balance between work and leisure reflected the ethos of the decade. Ambition, visibility, and consumption were key cultural drivers, yet there was a strong emphasis on family life and socializing with peers. Finally, one cannot talk about 1980s America without acknowledging the cultural influence of media. Television shows like Cheers, The Cosby Show, and Miami Vice depicted urban and suburban life, shaping perceptions of fashion, morality, and lifestyle. Movies such as Back to the Future and The Breakfast Club immortalized the aesthetic of streets, schools, and neighborhoods, giving future generations a vivid picture of the era. In conclusion, life in 1980s America was a complex tapestry of cars, buildings, streets, and social habits. From bustling urban centers with neon lights and skyscrapers, to calm suburban streets with playgrounds and shopping malls, the decade offered both modernity and nostalgia. Cars defined mobility and social status, neighborhoods reflected cultural diversity, and daily life was infused with music, fashion, and emerging technology. Experiencing 1980s America was to witness a society in transition, balancing prosperity and challenges, while leaving behind an enduring cultural legacy that continues to fascinate people today.